I think it was Alison. She'll no doubt tell you. I can't see you live yet.
You can't see me live?
No.
Is it happening? Is it happening?
That's it. It's happening now.
Okay. Dum, 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 dum. Right, Tuesday night. It must be cheese night. Welcome. It's another beautiful day looking out my window. I hope across the world we've got a few people listening in. It's always that wonderful moment going, are you there? Are you not there? It's cheese. It's beautiful. It's lovely. Let's talk. Now, I've already got Alison on there with Baron Bygod. I wanted some Baron Bygod. Cheese envy coming your way. You know, the moment in the restaurant and we should order what someone else is having? Baron Bygod is so good. And we've got Jill, courtesy Oxford Cheese Company. You've got a Brie De Meaux Danger. The Danger. I like the Danger. A little bit thicker, somewhat creamy, a little more woodland flavors. Good choices. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us again. It is now 8 o'clock. Tuesday night is cheese night. What's that? Is that so? Tracy, you there? Tracy?
I'm here. Charlie, I'm here. I'm here. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Tracy. It is lovely to see you again. I can actually see a picture here of Tracy. She's looking amazing. Where are you, Tracy?
I'm in Shropshire. We have blue skies with a few wispy clouds.
Has it been a nice day, nice and warm? Have you got out in the garden at all?
No, I've been running around doing an Academy of Cheese work, of course.
The Academy of Cheese. Oh, we've got Shepherd's Purse cheeses. Hi, Shepherd's Purse. Gorgeous team. Gorgeous team at Shepherd's Purse in Yorkshire. Your sort of cheese is your Harrogate Blue. If you've never tried, people, the Harrogate Blue of Shepherd's Purse, I think it's absolutely stunning. So good to see you on board. Who else we got? We got Jesus, we got Mike, we've got more Shepherd's Purse. Okay. Right, Tracy, what did we tell everyone we were going to talk about tonight?
Well, we're going to talk about soft and gooey cheeses, Brie style cheeses. Go. We need a little bit of an intro to the Academy of Cheese, though.
Okay, let's do that. With our wonderful sponsors. The Academy of Cheese are a global organization based in Shropshire. Tracy is the nerve center. We are the leading global teachers of cheese. So if you need to know about cheese, come to us. We're a very sober and sensible organization, and everything we put in our material has been proved by at least 2 or 3 studies that have been peer reviewed, I'm sure. On Tuesday night is Cheese Night. We are here to promote and have a little bit of fun at the expense of cheese and have a bit of love. So if you need to learn about cheese, come to our website, check us out, find out what we're doing, and leave us a little bit of cheesiness. Is that enough intro, Tracy? Can I now talk about the soft and gooiness that is brie-ripened, mold-ripened cheeses?
Let's go for it. I'd just like to say we've got Kevin here from Prague.
Prague? The gallant Czechs. How is it in Prague, Kevin? No doubt he'll get back to us in a second. Right. I don't know what cheeses you can get in Prague. One of our number, Paul Thomas, does a lot of work in Eastern Europe, improving the cheese being made out there. So I believe it's improving. I know that right across that eastern border of Europe, was a lot of what's called white cheeses. They have many local names, but the white cheeses are essentially, I always think of them as like piping bag cheeses. You know what I mean? You put the icing in, they put the curd, which is usually lactic rennet, into the curd and make these quite firm pressed cheeses, and they're very flexible, used a lot in cooking. They go very well pastry and that kind of thing. And it's interesting that that should be brought up because those are classified under the Academy of Cheese as being soft cheese because they're very, very simple in their structure. There isn't any big curd to curd bonding, and what we also see with that lot is there's a high moisture. But that's not soft and gooey cheeses. To get soft and gooey cheeses, we have to add a certain little bit of magic. And that magic comes through something called Penicillium Camembert. What the hell's that? Right, let's have a look. So I've got 2 cheeses tonight. I was hoping for some Baron Bygod, but I didn't get any. Difficult to get any where I am. It's a bit of a lockdown. So I've got Boy Latte. Can you see that? This is made by Kurt and Kraust. Now they're a sister company to Rodders. I don't know if anybody knows Rodders, but they're some of the finest makers of clotted cream. They are probably my favorite brand of clotted cream, although there are other good clotted creams. And they are a family-run company, and they're doing all right. They're a really good business. And I do like family-run companies. They sort of big family-run companies sort of sit in the middle between our small people and the very big people. And they keep going generation after generation. So Boilardi, that's the number one. Number two, a cheese called Sentient Deleon. Now, last week we had David Stone, you remember, David Stone, made by what was Dairy Crest, or still is Dairy Crest, but now owned by a large dairy firm from Canada. This is Sentient Deleon, made by Cornish Country Larder, who are owned by Arla. Arla, a very, very big cheese company in the UK. They take 25% of the UK milk market to make their cheeses. They do a lot of funky stuff, but most of it is in the large volume. Now, when I started off selling cheese in my little shop in Shaftesbury in Dorset, this was my go-to brie. And we'll come on to why I like this one. Lots of good cheeses coming out of the West Country right now that are soft. 10, 15 years ago, everyone was still trying, not always on it. And now those last 10 or 15 years have been part of the really awesome British Renaissance that has just multiplied the skill levels as people have got better and better at trying different cheeses coming from all over the world. Now, we want soft and gooey. Have we got soft and gooey? Coming in here with a little bit, reaching in a little bit of, oh, can we see that?
Charlie, can you tell us what the second cheese, that cheese is called, please, again?
The second one, Sentient Deleon. I'm going to misspell it now, live on YouTube. Endellion. They are, Sentient Deleon is a small town. It's made about 3/4 of the way. This is made 7 miles from where I'm standing. So it's very, very local to me down here. The Sentient Deleon is made after a small village. And they make a number of good cheeses, but this is the one that I rate this. Right. So what makes a soft and gooey cheese soft and gooey? Well, there are quite a few ways to make it, but the way we're going to focus on is this bloomy white rind, which you all are familiar with. So those of you that are looking at Baron Bigod, or maybe a Somerset Brie, or French Brie De Meaux, or the Brie de Meaux, or something more simple, it's all got this white, fluffy rind, right? Now, you can see on there, it looks pretty flat, but I can tell you that when it was sitting in its cellar back at the cheesemakers, this wasn't flat at all. It had lots of little filaments coming up. So it was a very soft, almost furry-like structure. I went to see Rousser, which is a really nice brie maker, about 20k the other side of Paris, and went down to their cellars, which just reek a sort of Second World War resistance kind of moment. Big doors underground. And all the cheese is laid out on these racks, and rack, sort of toaster on its side. And inside this is brie, but each one looks like it's snowed on. There's this bow of beautiful, pure white mold that's sitting there. And that gets pressed down when they put the greaseproof paper and start putting the box. So that's flattened. So let's remind ourselves what mold is, okay? Now, I know that mold is a word we tend not to want to talk about because it's a bad thing in general. Bottom line is nearly all molds do you no harm whatsoever. There are a few that release toxins, so I don't want you all to go out and go, right, I'm going to do some mold today, but the vast majority do not. The reason mold is thought, as a rule, to be bad in your fridge is because where mold can grow, bacteria can grow. And bacteria can be bad for you. So mold is a strong indicator of where something hasn't been kept correctly. But some molds are our friends. Now, this little chap is called Penicillium Camembert, or to give him his proper name, Penicillium candidum. Now, Penicillium Camembert has fallen out of favor as his name. People say, oh, no, that's not what you call it. Well, I think that's just cheese techies not liking us having a nice, easy name to remember. So I call it Penicillium Camembert because it goes on Camembert. How hard is that? Right, so it sits on the outside. So what does it do? Now, I don't know if you know much about Cornish pasties, but in the old days, Cornish pasties, the reason it was encased in pasty was because on pastry was you go down the line and you could get the whole meal inside the pasty, and it would not only protect the ingredients, but it would be like its own little carry case. Pastry in those days was almost like Tupperware for the 16th, 17th, 18th century. Now, it turns out this mold had a similar function. When they first started using it, it was about containing the cheese, because if you've got a cheese of this softness that can only be used, I don't know, within the next 5 or 10 miles because it's just too fragile to transport, bung it in a nice, robust, in this case, a mold, and you can start sending out to Paris, you've got a bigger business. And that brings us to Marie Hallel, which we'll talk about in a second. So they started using this mold because it's robust. It's a strong chap. It's a strong mold. Forms a strong, let's have a little bit of a cut off here. Oh, it's almost like a carpet, right? We'll rip it and you can see that it's got good strength to it because this is a multi-filament mold, which means that it's made up of more than one cell and it makes a nice structure. I mean, no one's expecting you to, you know, build houses out of this stuff, but you can probably sleep on one. There's a challenge. Okay, so it makes a nice robust mold, but it has this side effect. This side effect. What side effect here? They're saying what side effect, Tracy? I bet they are. It releases into the cheese, something called enzymes. Now we're not, it's like Tuesday night. We don't want to get too techy, but enzymes are going to turn out to be important. So let's see if you can see that. Right, let's see if we can get a nice picture. Can you see that in the middle of there? Are we seeing that? There's a sort of paler bit. Can we see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We got it a bit.
We're seeing that. We're seeing that.
We're seeing that. Good. We're seeing that. Okay. That, sometimes called the biscuit or the heart of the cheese, that's an unripened bit of camembert. Okay. That's what the cheese looked like when it went on the shelf as it just came out of the dairy and went straight on into what's called the hastener, which is the first step in ripening these cheeses. Now, that chappy there is crumbly, firm. I don't know if you can. Let's have a look. That's it. Can we see that? We've got. Come on, you can do this. Come on. Can you? Oh, is it going to focus? Maybe not. Is this a good use for a bowler hat? Look at that. Worked every time. Okay, I can't even turn that. Quite a lot of crap on the top of my head. Okay, so a little bit of crumble. So that is the cheese when it comes out of the dairy. So you've made the cheese, you've taken out as much moisture as you want. So what this cheese is doing is it goes from that crumble, then it goes soft. So what's doing it? That's those little enzymes. Enzymes released by the mold that you've introduced onto the outside. Now this mold is a monoculture for the broad most part. There might be some other molds and yeast in there, but what is dominant Penicillium Camembert. It's come out of a laboratory somewhere. It's been cultured. It's pure. It's very, very clean. The people using it know exactly what it does, and they know how it's going to perform. And now that cheese is going to see ripening up to about 1 centimeter to 1.5 centimeters from the outside to the inside, which is why the middle is the last bit to ripen. Okay, last bit to ripen. Ooh, crumbly. Now, you might say, oh, it's got a little more to go. Actually, that's quite tasty as is, but you're right. Most of us want to let it go a little bit more so that we get gooiness all the way down. And then it just slides off the plate or somewhere. So that's your one-on-one on how gooiness happens. Much more to it now. We're just getting started. But that's the essentials. Get a bit of soft cheese, leave lots of moisture in it, 50% moisture water. Remember last week we were talking about cheddars, 34 to 39% moisture. Those things can last forever. This chap, left to its own devices, would go off in about 20 days. Bung some mold on it, the right kind of mold. That's going to extend the life. You're nicely sealing it in. You're putting a nice protective coat on the outside. And now the little enzymes are getting to work and we're transforming it into something new. Loving that. Okay, so that's this chap. Now, let's go. Oh, I've given this one a little bit too much of a squeeze. I do apologize. I apologize, Mr. Sentient Deleon. Now, can you see? So if you can see that, can you see that one's skinnier than the other or flatter? Now, the thing about this is that makes a big difference. If your mold has got 1 centimeter-ish of penetration power to get the gooiness happening, you make a skinnier brie, it's going to start ripening the whole brie more, isn't it? If you make it like 1 foot thick, it's not going to ripen the whole way through. You're going to get a bit around the outside and not much in the middle. You make it really, really skinny, and it's going to ripen really quickly and get really good, but it's going to be fragile. So it's a payoff. And a lot of these cheeses had to make their decisions about how much they needed the rigidity in the cheese, the practicality of a cheese that doesn't break every time you pick it up, and the fact they needed to ripen. So Mr. Kurtz and Kraust, he's taken a Camembert style, probably fractionally thicker than your average Normandy Camembert, but that's going to do well. Mr. Sentient Deleon, made 10 miles away, has gone, let's get it ripened, go thin, use really good packaging to get it to our consumers and allow it to run like the devil, which is why in my shop, we had this as a banquet because a lot of our customers really valued that. Good. Right, that's the simplicity of it. What about some other ones I hear you asking? What about the poisses and maybe a liverole, maybe another Normandy cheese like that? Are those? Can
I tell you ones that people have got here?
Oh, I'd love to know.
So we've got Bally-Liscarama, a triple cream, which is a rival to the Gooey.
Interesting cheese that. We should do a program on triple cream cheeses. They're delicious.
We've got Brie De Meaux again. We've got Penicillium Camembert.
Oh, Penicillium, one of Ireland's greatest soft cheeses. They run quite a thick one. Now, let's talk about the French for a second, right? The French, I would say they invented it isn't quite the right word. They made it their specialty. They are the geniuses of mold ripened cheeses. And everyone for the last 50 years has been playing catch up. And the two big famous cheeses out there in France are the two PDOs of Brie De Meaux and Camembert de Normandy, right? Brie De Meaux goes back 700, it's first mentioned 770, something of that order. It's been around a very long time. It's had various number names. Meaux itself is a town, as I say, about 20 k's the other side of Paris. It has two sister cheeses, Brie de Nangis and Brie de Meaux, which is going around the clock of Paris. So if Meaux is at 3 o'clock, tick, 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 tick. Meaux is about 4:30 and Nangis is further around, sort of more south of Paris. They are not so famous, don't have that super gooiness that people have come to really respond to. Now, so Brie De Meaux is like the grandfather, relatively speaking. Camembert, which is the new kid on the block, because that dates to about 1780, 1800, something like that, with a lady called Marie Hellel, right? She is the godmother of mold ripened cheeses. Not only her, but her children, her grandchildren created a whole dynasty of Camembert making, cheese loving, money making, awesome people in the Normandy area. I mean, you know, if there was ever a person who can claim to be one of the godfathers, the great people of cheese, Marie Hellel was. And she codified the making of Camembert and really made it, got the structures right, and started really exporting it out there. So those are the two big cheeses. And the interesting thing about them is that nobody in the world can make them quite like they can. When we make them over here, the cheeses are yellower, they're butterier, we have more hints of bitterness. There's sort of, I don't mean it tastes dandelion, but if you imagine what dandelion would taste like, they've got more of those kind of flavors, developing bitter notes, that kind of thing. Is it time to talk taste? Or Tracy, you've got some questions for me?
Yes, we've got a question on what's your wine of choice this evening, please?
I've gone south. It's been such a beautiful couple of days here that I went down to the Languedoc. I've got a pick pool. Here we go. I don't know if you know much about the pick pool, Pic Pool de Pinet, right? Okay, it's a very, very old grape, the Pic Pool. It's got a really kind of, Pic Pool itself means stinging lips or something like that. Very acidic. This one isn't, by the way. And very bright, very big, often blended with other things except down there. So you can imagine when it's blisteringly hot, down in those sort of the Eastern Pyrenees. It's really, really refreshing. Now, we tasted this, my wife and I, we had a little moment just to check it out, and we're getting notes of, it comes in straight up appley, and then it dies away. You're thinking, maybe, no, that was just a first impression. Then there's a strong, fresh, juicy grape moment, and then it finishes in a kind of dry lime, and it's actually really nice. It's all blended very good. So it's actually working really well for me as a wine. It might clash, but in terms of trying to get food matching, we touched on this last week, For the big flavors, which is the mouth flavors, you want alternate flavors. So if you have big sweet, big savory, then going acidic is balancing. But for the complex flavors, you want emphasis. So you want where you're picking out the subtle flavors, you want to emphasize and bring them forward. Now, this is going to give a bit of balance on the simple flavors, but it might just get a bit confused on the complex flavors because it's got nothing in common. So I'll keep you posted. Right, taste. Have you got your tasting sheets to hand? I don't know whether you've got that, but you can download the standard approach to tasting cheese from the Academy of Cheese website. It's available, it's free and all that kind of stuff. And it helps you really get into understanding cheese by taking you through your observations really slowly. On the front side of the sheet, we all have the non-flavor related issues. What's it look like? What does it smell like? What is its texture? What do you know about it? What kind of cheese is its name? And then on the second page, we start getting to the deep flavor analytical kind of issues, which is split between the simple flavors, which we call the mouth flavors of salt, sweet, acid, bitter, and savory, and then the complex flavors, the other 10,000 flavors that come in through the nose, which humans are so, we're brilliant smellers. I mean, we don't have anything on dogs, fair enough, but we are awesome at what we do. So we've got 10,000 flavors. Now, you don't have 10,000 flavors. We as a species have 10,000 flavors. You have trained up your nose to be aware of and identify, and if you're lucky, be able to name the flavors that you've encountered during your life. So your experiences will be different from someone who lives in Lima or Shanghai or I don't know, somewhere else. And those kind of things. So you will have learned to use the skills relevant to where you live. Now, we people in Britain are very lucky as a first world country to have a plethora, an astonishing array of food choices in our supermarkets and that. But the downside is we kind of lose track because we don't get to know our local flavors very well. Whereas people have simpler cuisines, and I would include the Mediterranean, very nuanced, very good at their smells. So we need to get in there and understand this because the flavor is in the complexity, the interest is in the complexity. Don't get me wrong, the simple flavors are awesome too. I love them too. Right, so let's have a flavor. So if you're sitting there and you haven't consumed it, or I'm going to start with the Sentient Deleon. Oh, shouldn't play with your food, my mother said. Okay, this is classic. This is classic British style. Okay, so it's a warm flavour going straight into savoury, and I have to say it tastes of clotted cream. This isn't the Rodders one. This isn't the Kurz and Kraus one. This is Sentient Deleon. So it tastes of rich cream, a warmth, almost a hint of vanilla going on there, and then edging around the sides, we're getting bitterness. Now I haven't tasted the rind here, which is the normal source of bitterness. But in these kind of cheeses, but it's really getting in it. Now, bitterness is such an interesting one because as an adult, you begin to really enjoy bitters. Think of all the great bitters that you love, apart from bitter itself. Good bitter bit. You love bitter in your coffee. You like bitter in your chocolate. You might like bitterness in tobacco if you're a tobacco user. So bitterness is something that we really respond to if positioned right, and this has been done very nicely. It's just says adult. It says interesting. Almost like sort of, I don't want to say burnt toast kind of thing, a really nice kind of thing. This is incredibly more. I'm going to spread it around my mouth. So the texture is very, very good, very reliable. Now, in terms of the complex flavors, not massive. It's pure nice, if that makes sense. But we're getting a bit of mushroom, and I'm going to go back to that burnt toast, almost like mushrooms on toast kind of flavor. Deep umami, really gentle, buttery umami, absolutely delicious. So that is what we're getting there. And I want to pick out some flavors that are classic British, okay? Butter and that bitterness, that complex bitterness that comes in through the way we deliver it. Now, people have argued why non-French cheeses have more bitterness. And I can tell you that the common answer is the blend of molds and yeasts used in the ripening. Now, I said to you that it's predominantly, almost entirely Penicillium Camembert, and it will be. But if you look at the traditional French styles, they will have, just like those hard cheese we talked about last week, a biome in their maturing rooms that will be a lot more than just one mold. You'll get a lot of other things going on there. And in particular, people talk about a very famous yeast called Geotrichum candidum, Geotrichum, that is thought to balance off the bitterness, which is one of the reasons that if you look at French molds and you analyze and get them under the microscope, you'll find a lot more going down there than just the monoculture of the Camembert. Fascinating stuff. Now, what I just love is I think that bitterness, I want to take away all the negativity you might associate with this. All it's throw over your shoulder. It's just a pleasure, and I think it goes really well with that butter. Really well with that butter, that cream. So you tasted yours. What is your tasting? Can you tell me what you're tasting? Is it interesting? Are you tasting French? Are you tasting English? And what's your experience? Meanwhile, I'm going to go on with a little bit of the Curtis and Crost. Do you know what Crost means, by the way? I looked it up today. I assumed it was some bloke. It turns out that Crost is Cornish for having a mid-morning or a mid-afternoon snack. Who knew? So it's a bit like having second breakfast. And I think the idea of having second breakfast cheese is just delicious. Very good. So what I'm getting here is a classic, because it's a well-formed rind, is that button mushroom. Not a completely raw button mushroom, just a slightly cooked one. It's still very white, not that brown button mushroom that you cooked in with your sausages. So the light, so you get a little bit of the break as it opens up and then the moisture is released. So that kind of early button mushroom flavor. You got a little more acidity out of that central biscuit, the unripened bit. And you're getting more of this West Country cream and butter. Less butter on this one. Around that. It's so easy to eat. Don't talk with your mouth full, Charlie. Very bad for you. Now, I really love the British styles. There are some famous ones that edge toward the English style, the French styles, and the two people will go for is the Tunworth, which is a camembert shape, and the Baron Bigod Brie. Now, Tunworth is from Hampshire Cheeses, so it's sort of halfway from here to London. And Fen Farm, which makes Baron Bigod, is right out in, I think it's Norfolk or Suffolk, Tracy. You have to correct me on that one.
They're at Bungay, and it's they're right on the border. So the cows some days graze in Norfolk and some days graze in Suffolk.
So they're always folk. They sometimes gnaw and they're sometimes soft. They are they're Montbéliards, and this gets us into the issue of what's the best cow to make your milk from. Now, Montbéliard is thought to be like the aristocrats of the French dairy milking fraternity, sort of to give the best milk. That's very arguable, particularly because Camembert, which is the icon, is made from Normandy cattle. But Montbéliard brought over by Johnny to make really good raw milk 3 kilo Bries, and that's the classic Baron Bigod. They do baby Bigods as well, which is my favorite. But these big raw milk cheeses to really compete against those Rothschilds, those Rousers, those Dangers, those big companies from the east of Paris. The Baron Bigod is the darling of our cheese, our soft cheese industry, but there are other really good makers out there. There are other really good makers, and I would single out a lot of the West Country, but also these two, the Tunworth and the Baron Bigod. But all good people out there. So if you want to know or buy from, pardon me, a little bit of pit pool coming up the wrong way there. If you want to know or buy from these, just go to the Academy website. We're listing as many cheesemongers, as many cheesemakers as we can, so that you can. What was that, Tracy?
Just we got a couple of questions.
Oh, good questions.
So I've been asking the people listening what other flavours they're getting. We're getting on the Ballylisk clotted cream and on the Collini camembert mushroom and toast. So that's great. Another question, we've got Karen from Norway, and she's talking about the Gjetost.
Yeah, she spelled it with an L there, I'm saying. Yeah, Gjetost. Gjetost is a completely different kettle of fish. We were very lucky 2 years ago, Tracy, weren't we, when we went to Norway for the World Cheese Awards to Bergen. Gjetost, it deserves a program on its own. It's a whey cheese made from either cow's milk or goat's milk whey, and or a blend, and it's brown. It looks like a brick, and it's got the sort of amazing characteristics of caramel, and it melts very well. It's thought to be a sort of vaguely breakfast cheese, but actually that's completely underplays the way Norway eats it all the time. But we tasted, and Tracy and I were tasting together, a wide variety of the Gjetost cheeses, which are well off-piste here, of different textures. We had some Marmite ones, or some amazing Gjetost. But that's the kind of thing where you think you know what you're talking about, and it's just the countries have whole depth to their love of cheese. They produce some extraordinary things. Any more questions? Oh, I've got Vacherin. Louise up there is talking about a Vacherin. Yeah, no, you're not. You might just be able to get hold of Vacherin now. It's really to the end of March, so we've just tipped over. For those who don't know, the Vacherin is the softest of all the cheeses. It almost defines Gooey. There's a French version and a Swiss version. They're down south direction over that Alps, and they come in little boxes with a girdle made out of, of course, sapin pine. The wife's back. Would you like some wine there?
She's back. Hello, Ron. She's tight.
The good news is that means the kids are asleep or nearly asleep. So, so where was I? So yes, the Vacherin, one of the greatest soft cheeses ever made. Awesome.
Question. Difference between Camembert and Brie?
Yeah, good question. Right, we're ducking around this issue of PDOs, these protected food names. There is no protection for the word Brie or Camembert. You could make a pair of shoes and call it a Camembert. There isn't. You can do anything you like with the word Camembert. Same goes for Brie. What you cannot do is Brie De Meaux or Camembert de Normandy. Those words are protected under EU law. And they will come after you like a ton of bricks if you start mucking around with their protected food name skills. There are 270 odd cheeses in Europe that get protected food name status, and many, many more of every other kind. And they are sort of Jersey potatoes, Cornish pasties, melted Mowbray pork pies. Lots of things get this status. But in cheese terms, Brie and Camembert are the ones. There's Nongis and I think Melon is. I don't think Nongis is, but so that's it. So when people say Cornish Brie or Cornish Camembert, it could be anything. So what's the difference between Brie and Camembert? You know, we can talk about the difference between Brie De Meaux and Camembert de Normandy, and there is a real difference there. So with the Brie De Meaux, you classically are thinking woodland flavor, so some earthiness, with some forest mushrooms, some of that sort of tree kind of smell. And you go for the Camemberts, and it's all allotment flavors, cabbage, brassica, those kind of things. Now, there are Bries that drift towards Camembert and Camemberts that drift towards Brie, but those are the two families, and they sort of overlap a bit. When you look outside of France and outside those PDOs, I know small Bries named Camembert, and I know small Camemberts named Brie. Otherwise, it could be anything. So I hope that clears up your question.
Hopefully all delicious.
Hopefully all delicious. Right.
We've got a great variety of cheeses here that people have had tonight. So if anybody wants to send in their pictures.
Oh, we'd like that. Send pictures.
Do that.
Twitter it, hashtag TNCN, cheese night, Tuesdays night, cheese night, TNCN, that'll be fine. No one's asked me, but I'm going to answer this question because I get asked it every single time. How do you ripen a Brie or a Camembert? And that's actually really interesting because everyone's kitchen has moved on in the last 100 years, and that's important. In the old days, the kitchen was frequently the coldest room in the house, and leaving it out in a cheese safe, if you've ever come across a French cheese safe, or on a slate shelf, was the right thing to do. But in today's age, kitchen's the warmest room in the house. It's where we spend most of our time. Often you'll have a sofa in there, and you'll put a TV, and it's sitting there at 22, 23 degrees. That's not good for your cheese, okay? So what temperatures Brie ripen that when it's in its own home, when it's back with the cheesemaker, it's about 10 degrees, okay? Really cold, 2 to 3 degrees warmer than your fridge can get. So if you take it down to fridge temperatures, your free cheese is struggling. It might ripen, it might not, might just give up the ghost. So getting it up to 10 degrees allows it to move on. Now, the problem here, next bit, the environmental health teams don't like you doing things that are unsafe. And their version of unsafe is warmer than 8 degrees, okay? Just don't do it. They have some nice little rules about how long you can take cheeses out for, and what you can do with them. They obviously aren't going to come into your home, but all professionals are guided by these. And they basically say, if you take it out for 2 hours, you can put it back into the fridge. If you take it out for more than 2 hours, but less than 4 hours, you can consume it, but you have to then throw it away. So it's really rude, whereas the cheese makers, they know what they're doing. It's their cheese. They've done the test, and so they can go all the way to 15, 16 degrees, and that's where they get best results. I was talking to a Cornish cheesemaker, and I was saying to him, so when's the best time to eat your cheese? And he goes, 55, 58 days. And I'm going, but your use-by date, your best before date is 50 days. Oh yeah, it's probably want to leave it past that. That's the cheesemaker talking, all right? So back to it. In my home, I'm very lucky that down there's a slate shelf, sits on there, 14, 15 degrees. This Kurds and Kraus one has been there for 4 or 5 days. I would have probably left it for another couple of days. Awesome. But in your own home, give it some time. And my honest answer is buy it from the cheesemonger already ripe. It's the only way you know you're going to get there in the way. It's a roundabout answer to a question you didn't ask, but I know you're interested, aren't you? Because you're cheese lovers, so you like to know. Tracy.
So we've got another question, but it's more about our courses. So we've got a lady here, and she's considering doing the level 2 course online, and wondered, so at level 2, we study 75 cheeses. At level 1, we do 25. And she'd like to know about where the supply of the 75 cheeses, if she wasn't doing the course, which we can't do at the moment. Obviously, there's no courses in classrooms.
She wants to know where to get her cheeses.
Yeah, where to buy, those 75 cheeses. Obviously, they're from around the world. Well,
Mrs. Lady, nice to meet you. I hope you're actually listening. The answer is right now you can't get them from anywhere. There's a war on, and we can't get it from any one source. When putting together the 100 cheeses for level 1 and 2 combined, we wanted to see the iconic versions of particular cheese making styles. Who got there first or near first, been around for a long time. So we can see what the cheese making style embeds and how that delivers in flavor and texture, and also in the cuisine it's found. So we've gone old school. There are many, many cheesemakers using making modern interpretations of those cheese. So the way that we work is, if you can't get the cheese that we list, we are okay with you finding somebody who's doing a near friend of that, as long as you're using the same techniques. Now, we'll be releasing probably in 2 to 3 weeks or a month, a list of descriptors that allow you to find alternatives, and you can give us a call and we will suggest ones local to you that you can get, because it's understandable that not all cheeses are going to be available. On top of which, we're getting so much interest from places that are far-flung, the Americas and Australia, that we're allowing local interpretations of some cheeses. You will always be tested on the ones we've chosen, and that material is in the cheese library. You get a nice little book that says that, and there's always a little bit of text you need to know about those, because that's building up your cheese history and your knowledge and the foundations of cheese. But in tasting them, we're good if you have to find a local interpretation. A local interpretation, because local cheese is good cheese. Now, Tracy, I'm seeing 43 minutes. I'm sure these people, these happy people, have got glasses of wine and they've had enough talking to me, and I want to leave them hanging on for more. Yep. I'm looking out, the sun is down. I'm seeing pink sky at night. It's going to be shepherd's delight. That is going to be gorgeousness days tomorrow. We've got a half bottle of Pickpool that we want to get on with. Is there anything you'd like me to say before Cheese Night signs off for another day?
Yes, we need to tell everybody about your virtual course.
Okay.
Your virtual level 1 course that's starting.
Virtual course starts on the, we've written it down here, so 22nd. So we're going to do a little webinar thing. So 3 nights, hour and a half, going to be the 22nd, the 29th, and the 6th. We're going at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 till 5:30. If you want to ask questions on that, I'm very relaxed. If it drifts on a bit, that's fine. But it's about you being able to do your level 1 course and have proper interaction, have me, and you can ask questions and talk, and we'll get to know each other, and that'll be great fun. There are 2 prices on there at the moment. 149 quid for the package that includes the cheese, but we've had inquiries from places where we can't send you cheese, so it's 135 quid without cheese. And I'm telling you now that that is a bargain, because that's the same price as our online only course. So you do not have the benefit of international cheese judge Charlie Turnbull taking you through for the same price. And that's got to be worth your money. What next, Tracy?
So I have to whisper this.
Oh, it's all right. Nobody's listening.
Everybody, listen up. We're launching tomorrow the British Cheese Weekender.
The what? Say it a bit louder. They can't hear you in Brazil.
British Cheese Weekender.
The British Cheese Weekender!
Yes.
I think I've woken my children. The British Cheese Weekender. So it's going to be over the May Day bank holiday. It's not just Britain that has struggling right now. The small producers all over the world. We're going to do a British Cheese Weekender. If you are in Brazil, go have a Brazilian Cheese Weekender. We're going to lead the way. The Small Producers Specialist Cheesemaker Association are leading the way. All the small producers in the UK. We're going to start really getting people trying British cheeses. The cool, the small, the big, the large, the gooey, the hard, the smelly, the one you'd rather give your mother-in-law, the whole gamut of British cheeses. We're going to be bigging them up. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a talk about it. We're going to be telling where you can get them. You can spread a gorgeous cheese picnic and get immersed in British cheese history. We'll be releasing information on some of our heritage cheeses. So the British Cheese Weekender, bring it on. But I will see you next week for Tuesday night's cheese night. What's that?
For ghost cheese.
Goat cheese, yes, goat cheese. I'll be tasting Ragstone from the Neal's Yard Creamery. They have a lot of fresh cheese they need to get rid of, so they've asked me. They haven't asked me, I just knew, so we're going to do it anyway. They've asked me to help them, so go order from Ragstone. We'll taste it. It's a fantastic product. Good night. Have a wonderful time. It's going to take me 2 to 3 seconds to turn off my video, so I'm just going to start do a little dance. Oh, I made this today, by the way. Right, ding, 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 ding. Ending streaming now. Love you all. Bye.